High above the East China Sea, two of the most advanced fighter jets on the planet are staring each other down. On one side, China's J-15 Flying Sharks roaring off the deck of the aircraft carrier Liaoning. On the other, Japan's F-15 Eagles screaming in from Okinawa. And then, it happens. The Chinese jets lock their fire control radars onto the Japanese fighters, not once, twice. In the deadly serious language of aerial combat, that's the equivalent of putting a finger on the trigger and saying, "Back off or else." This isn't a movie. This happened on December 6, 2025. First twist, most people mix. This was the very first confirmed radar lock-on between a Chinese carrier-based fighter and a Japanese jet in history. To understand why this moment is so explosive, we have to go back, not just years, but centuries. China and Japan have been rivals since the days of imperial conquest. The scars of the Second Sino-Japanese War still run deep. After 1945, Japan swore off offensive warfare with its famous pacifist constitution. For decades, it worked. Japan got rich, China stayed quiet. Then everything changed. Here's the twist. The aircraft carrier at the center of this drama, the Liaoning, actually started life as a Soviet rust bucket that China bought from Ukraine in 1998, supposedly to turn into a floating casino. Yeah, right. Beijing spent a decade refitting her, and in 2012, she became China's first operational carrier. Today, she's the pride of the PLN, constantly training in the East China Sea, flexing muscles Japan never thought it would have to face again. Fast forward to Saturday, December 6, 2025, 4:32 p.m. local time. The Japanese F-15 from Naha Air Base is on routine patrol southeast of Okinawa. Suddenly, its cockpit lights up with a radar lock warning. The source? A J-15 that just catapulted off the Liaoning 2 miles away. The lock is intermittent, but it's unmistakable. The Chinese pilot is painting the Japanese jet with fire-controlled radar, the final step before a missile leaves the rail.
You'd think that would be the end of the story. Nope. 2 hours later at 6:37 p.m., a second J-15 does the exact same thing to a different Japanese F-15 and holds the lock for almost 30 minutes. Japan's defense minister Gen Nakatani calls it extremely dangerous and utterly unacceptable. Tokyo files an official protest through diplomatic channels the same night. Japanese media explodes. Social media in China celebrates it as the moment the PLA Navy finally taught Japan a lesson. Here's where it gets spicy. China never actually confirms or denies the lock-on. Instead, their defense ministry drops a completely different bomb the same week. Quote from Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Senior Colonel Ru Xian, "If Japan insists on tying itself to the U.S. chariot and stepping out of line on the Taiwan question, it will inevitably pay a painful price." Why say that now? Because 48 hours after the radar incident, Japan quietly finished deploying surface-to-air missiles on an island just 110 kilometers from Taiwan. The island is called Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost piece of land. You can literally see Taiwan with binoculars on a clear day. For years, it had nothing but a tiny Coast Guard station and some wild horses. Now it has Type 03 medium-range missiles, electronic warfare units, and 24/7 surveillance radars pointed straight at the Taiwan Strait. Think those missiles are pointed at China? Technically, no, they're defensive. But here's the twist. Their range is only 50 kilometers, which means the only thing they can realistically shoot down is a Chinese missile flying toward Japan. Translation, Japan just built the first piece of an anti-axis bubble protecting Taiwan. Back to the radar lock. Why did China feel justified? Because aircraft carriers aren't just ships. They're moving pieces of sovereign territory. International custom, not law, custom, gives a carrier battle group a safety bubble, especially when jets are launching and recovering every few minutes. One wrong move by foreign aircraft and you get a minor collision or a jet ingesting debris on the deck. In the U.S. Navy, if you fly too close to a carrier during flight ops, you get warned, then intercepted, then potentially shot down. China is now saying we play by the same rules, but there's a huge catch. No international treaty actually defines how big that bubble is. The U.S. claims 500 nautical miles sometimes. China just drew its own invisible line in the water that day and dared Japan to cross it. This single incident connects 3 powder kegs. the unresolved status of the Senkaku-Daiyu Islands, China's claim that Taiwan is a core interest allowing zero foreign interference, and Japan's quiet but massive military rebirth.
You won't believe this. In 2024 alone, Japan scrambled fighters more than 700 times, mostly against Chinese aircraft and drones. December 2025 set a new monthly record before the year even ended. Japan is now the world's fourth largest military spender after the US, China, and Russia. It's buying Tomahawk cruise missiles, building 2 new helicopter destroyers that are basically light carriers, and training openly for Taiwan contingencies. The pacifist era is over. And get this, Japanese officials have started saying publicly that an attack on Taiwan would trigger Japan's right to collective self-defense. That means Japanese missiles and jets could fight on Taiwan's side from day one. China just heard that loud and clear. Meanwhile, Chinese state media is running documentaries titled The Undetermined Status of the Ryukyu Islands. They're openly questioning whether Okinawa, and by extension Yonaguni, actually belongs to Japan, citing the old Ryukyu kingdom that paid tribute to China centuries ago. Psychological warfare? Absolutely. Even Russia is piling on. Moscow warned Japan this week that militarizing islands near Russian borders, they claim some of the same chains, will be met with tough responses. What happens if shots are fired? Let's game this out. If a Japanese F-15 ever shoots down a J-15 or vice versa, the escalation ladder is terrifyingly short. Immediate U.S. involvement under the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, possible Chinese blockade of Taiwan to punish Japan, oil and gas routes through the East China Sea shut down overnight, global chip shortage 2.0 because 60% of advanced semiconductors come from Taiwan. Here's the scariest part. Both sides have military hotlines now, but during the radar lock incident, nobody picked up the phone. Zero direct communication for over 4 hours. Is there a way out? Experts say yes, but only if both sides agree on basic rules. Pre-notify carrier operations, define minimum separation distances, use the hotline every single time something weird happens. So far, neither side wants to blink first. And now the twist that keeps me up at night. The Liaoning Battle Group didn't leave after the incident. As of today, December 7th, 2025, it's still operating in the exact same area, running flight operations around the clock. Japan has F-15s on 24-hour alert. The radars are still sweeping. One itchy trigger finger, one miscalculation, one pilot who's had a bad day, and the first shots of a Pacific Corps could be fired by accident tomorrow morning.